What is up, Pacer Nation? Happy Friday. We have made it to the end of the week, and I tell you what, for being a 4-day week for most of us, it has felt like the longest week in a long time, and I am extremely tired, and so are my guests today, David Cole and Carson Stafford. But we are here to finish out ranking the starters in the NBA, and we're looking at the center position today. Carson and David, I'm glad to have you back. David, we'll start with you. You told me off air that this was a very difficult task for you to do, and so as you were kind of looking at the centers in the Eastern Conference, what made it so difficult?
It's a weird mix of different kinds of players who are in different positions of their career, as well as teams that just some of these teams are just like trotting these sinners out here to lose. Like
Yeah.
there's just at least two or three teams where you're like, you can probably do better if you made a trade or if you went even just signed a free agent. And then you have at least two people who have a lot of injury problems off and on and different issues that make them very difficult to place because their talent versus what you actually get is an equation that's impossible to solve because of the injury problem. And then you have young players that are on the up and up, and how far up are they going to rise? With the power forwards, you guys talked about Paolo and kind of, in kind of had him different places and considered what you want to think, but like he's still so young that like sure if you want to project him at number two, that's fine. He's young enough that he could get there. Um, but he's shown something, but he's not just shown something, he's shown like a lot, and maybe
Yeah.
he'll never hit that high, but maybe he will. Some of these players, they've shown flashes, but they haven't shown as much for me to be like, all right, this is where I want to put them. A lot of uh, people entering their second year on this list, and that's just really hard. Where if with Paolo, at least you have a couple years to go off of, and other people, it just feels like this position had people, you have people in their 30s, like 35, 36, and you have people that are like 21 years old. It's all
Yeah.
across the board. So it was just a very diverse group of players.
It's been a lot of fun going through and just kind of seeing where the Pacers guys stack up against the rest of the East. And my opinion and Fachi's opinion now and your guys' opinion for the centers, I think it'll be a little bit of a different conversation than your Andrew Nimhards, your Pascal Siakams, your wing duos like we did on Wednesday with Mathurin and Neesmith. And I just thought it was really interesting to kind of go through and figure out where they stack up against them. And it's like you said, it's weird because the depth charts are all over the place when you're looking at who to put here. Carson texted us and was like, "Hey, Bam's not on the center list," and I'm like, "Well, he was actually on the power forward list because Kel'el Ware was starting in the playoffs for him, and so like if they're playing together, they list Bam at the power forward. So it's like, where do you rank him? Where do you not rank him? Because I don't want to rank like Jovic as the starting power forward if Kel'el Ware and Bam are going to start together. So it's just me kind of being nitpicky with which players are put in what category, but I think it does make for a fun conversation. So Carson, tell us a little bit about your summer because you just got back from being out of the country. So how are you feeling? Jet lag is it catching up with you? Are you getting back to normal yet? Or
Yes, I'm pretty exhausted. So yeah, I was in Europe for 2 months. I got back last Thursday and I got in at like 9:30, 10 p.m., which was I was in Switzerland, and so like really that was like 3:30, 4 a.m. of what I was used to. But so I went to sleep, got home, went to sleep, woke up at 4 a.m. To carpool with one of my buddies to drive 12 hours to Minnesota for a wedding over the weekend. So I did that on Friday. That night was like the rehearsal and the bachelor party. And then Saturday was the wedding. Drove back and this is like northern Minnesota, like further than Duluth. And then Sunday drove back 12 hours, got back Monday morning, went to sleep, had Monday to kind of like recover from both my trip and the wedding. And then I started a new job on Tuesday, and my boss last minute asked me to fly out to Boston to start my new job. So I got back today from Boston. So I've
good.
slept in my own bed, I think, twice in the past 65, 70 days. So I'm pretty tired, but here I am talking Pacers basketball and NBA centers in the East.
Okay, well that is quite the week you've had on your return back from Europe. Good
Yeah.
grief. This story just kept getting better and better. I don't even know why you're here right now. If you would have canceled on me and just said, "Can you and David cover this?" I would have said, "I totally understand." So our podcast listeners on this September night, they do thank you for that. So Well, with that being said, I'm just going to quickly go through and read the 2K ratings because you'll know who the players are that we are ranking if you're a listener, and you'll also know where they have them ranked in 2K. Now, that does not mean that's how we have them ranked. It's just how 2K has them ranked to kind of have something to go off of. So at number one, we have a tie at 92. It's Karl Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid. At number two, it's Kristaps Porzingis. Now there's question marks if he will start for the Hawks or not. If he doesn't, Onyeka Okongwu is the other name. He's an 81 overall. Jarrett Allen's 84. Myles Turner 83. Nikola Vucevic is an 82. Jalen Duren is an 82. Alex Sarr is an 81. Jakob is an 80. Kel'el Ware is a 79. Nicholas Claxton is a 79. Wendell Carter Jr. is a 78. The combination of J Huff and Isaiah Jackson. J Huff is 76. Isaiah Jackson's a 73. For the Hornets, there's still question marks there. Mason Plumlee is a 75. Diabate is a 73. And then lastly, here for our Boston Celtics, it's Queta, who is a 74 overall. So, Carson, since you have just been in Boston, maybe you can kick us off here at number 15 with your first center.
Yeah, so um this I honestly am not a huge don't watch a lot of Diabate and Queta basketball, so I wasn't quite sure who to put at 15, but I actually went with the combo of of Plumlee and Diabate at that last spot in the East.
Okay, at 15, you have the Hornets combo of Mason Plumlee and I forget how to say the guy's first name. I really do apologize. That's like Mutas Diabate or something like that. But we'll just call him Diabate and Plumlee. So I can see the argument. I kind of feel like they're in a similar tier. So, David, who did you have at 15?
I flipped it. I did flip it on this situation. I did have Queta at the 15. Um, for all of these, I did more of a deep dive than it deserved, probably. But I went with the Charlotte Hornets pairing simply because Diabate or Diabate, I'm not positive, is 3 years younger than Queta and almost doubled up on his blocks. Or not his blocks, sorry, his rebounds.
Yeah, he's really
Um,
good.
and is scoring more points. So, a few more minutes per game. So maybe that would be washed if it was even minutes. But 3 years younger, so that was something to me. And comparable stats in the important categories for a center with a good bit more rebounds. So I went that direction, even though you also do have Plumlee. I mean, you have a veteran presence there. I mean, he's not very good and he's very, very old, but you do have that veteran presence there as well. So that's worth something.
Yeah.
As we know with James Johnson, it's a veteran presence can be worth a lot. So I went ahead and gave them the slight nod and
Okay.
put them at the 14 and put Queta for Boston at the 15.
All right, Carson, did you have Queta at 14?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you have Queta at 14 and Plumlee and Diabate at 15, and then me and David have
Yeah.
Queta at 15 and Plumlee and Diabate at 14.
Yes.
I will just say this. I'm not saying Diabate is like a great center or anything like that, but there is a reason why the Hornets were willing to get rid of Mark Williams and Nick Richards last year. They believe in Diabate, and I know Plumlee is more of a serviceable big, a little bit more experience. I don't expect him to start. I think Diabate will start. And if you're looking at this Hornets team, it's kind of random, but I think if they catch you on the wrong night, they could win some games. That's a decent starting five with LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Diabate. I mean, that's not a bad starting five. They can compete, they can score, they can defend. I'm not saying they're great, but be interesting. Now with the Celtics, we know how that front court looks. Chris Boucher is the starting power forward more than likely. Some people are saying maybe Sam Hauser will start. I've also heard Sam Hauser will come off the bench just to kind of keep him in his role, familiarity. Chris Boucher and Queta as your starting 4-5. That screams to me, we're not really trying this year. So I get why they're not. And so that is really interesting there. Now, as we move into number 13, Carson, I'll come to you. Who do you have ranked in that 13 spot?
This is where I put based off of just how I balanced age, talent, potential upside, what we've seen, what we haven't seen. I did have the Isaiah Jackson, J Huff pairing at this 13 spot. It felt kind of criminal to put him here. And we can talk about some of the other names, but the more I got to looking at it, um, I didn't see a lot of I couldn't come with a lot of great explanations as to who to put as to who would make it before them. So this is where I left our Pacers starting centers.
David?
I did not have Jackson and J Huff at 13. Do you want me to go ahead and say
Okay.
who I did have at 13?
Yeah, go ahead.
I put Wendell Carter Jr. here.
Oh,
I
wow.
have,
Okay, we're all over the place. I love it.
yeah. I can. Do you want me to dive into that for a minute, or
Yeah, go ahead.
so they're overpaying. I mean, to me, they're overpaying him. They're paying him almost $18 million a year for the next 3 years. I think. Yes,
Hmm.
3 years. 10 points a game scorer on 27 minutes a game. So like he's getting good minutes. Like at this point, for what I didn't look up what they're paying Goga, but like at this point, like you might as well save the money and start Goga. I don't know, like
Yeah.
not that he's bad, he's not terrible. He probably on pure talent alone by itself, right now, especially given that J Huff's a little bit of an unknown because he hasn't had as much opportunity as he's getting ready to have, and Ijax coming off the ACL. I would not fault someone for saying Carter Jr. is better. I would much rather have J Huff and Ijax combined than have Wendell Carter Jr. And that was part of my like, if people were in the same category, same tier for me, which the next 3 years are in the same tier for me, of my 13, 12, and 11. If they're in the same tier, I thought, would I rather trade what we have for this? And if the answer was yes, and I bumped it up a little bit. And so the answer was no for Wendell Carter Jr. So he was 13. I just think like I think, and I also think he just is what he is. He's 26 years old. I don't know that we're gonna get much more from him with more opportunity. And they're also in a weird situation where they have like they have like five different people that are like power forward center type people. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
you know, the
Mo Wagner, Jonathan
the
Isaac.
the Wagners, and then I'm not even counting Isaac. So you
Yeah.
count Isaac, Goga, both the Wagners, and then Paolo is like, I know he can play lots of different positions, but he's kind of a power forward. Like if like you have like six people at the four and the five ish, and you
Hmm.
are having to play some of them at the three. So I'm not even sure if Carter Jr. is going to really have the opportunity to do much more. But so I was kind of like, yeah, I don't want this.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I do think that Wendell Carter Jr. is like a prime trade candidate for the Magic, but I don't think from conversations I've had with other people, they don't want to trade him this year because he still is their best center on the depth chart. I am a little bit higher on Carter Jr. than you are. I think that there is potential there. I just think it's a little bit of a weird fit, and I'm probably going to have a hot take here with who I have at 13, unless you guys maybe have him at 12. But I'm going with old man Vucevic. I know that he is one of these guys that puts up good numbers, but this is a good numbers, bad teams kind of guy. He was good in Orlando ever since he's been in Chicago. Like he's had decent stats. Like I'm not trying to be mean, but like this guy's making like $20 million. They can't trade him. They tried so many different times. They can't get rid of him. You talked about like your reasoning. Like, would you trade J Huff and Isaiah Jackson for him? No, I wouldn't trade those two contracts that make around less than $10 million a year for a guy that's making double that and a guy that you probably can't play in a playoff series and expect to win. Like this is like what people say about Domantas Sabonis, but worse. Like, yeah, he can shoot threes. Yes, he can rebound the basketball. He's a good fundamental player, but he is like a backup center to me at this point in his career. That is like only starting because there's not a lot of great center depth in the Eastern Conference. Like even if you traded him to Boston, like I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I think he has to be on the right team to really make himself fit. And when you're looking at his age and where he's, projecting moving forward, I don't love it. And a lot of fans I've seen during this offseason have said, could the Pacers go out and get Vooch? I'm like, if he gets waived, sure. If he doesn't, then no. Like the contract plays a factor into that. The age plays a factor into that. And I just think style of play matters too. So I'm going to be low on Vooch. I know he's ranked, I think, 6 overall in terms of 2K ratings for the center. So it felt like I was really taking a swing here for a hot take, but I'm not a big Vooch guy. So, Carson, are you shocked that I have Vooch so low?
I'm not shocked because I get it, especially depending on like criteria that you're looking at. I kind of approached this list from more, I didn't really look at money. I did not really even consider like I factored in availability to some extent, but when I'm going down this list, I'm mostly looking at like if I am just draft, like not even drafting guys, but if we're on a basketball court and we're picking my five versus your five, and there's two teams and we're going back and forth. And if it's between one guy and the next, I just kind of base my ranking off of who am I taking. So I did have Vooch higher just because his offensive game, even at one, the age, like I didn't even factor in age that much. So I'm not even looking at like who am I wanting more like moving forward to build around or anything like that. Just who I feel like generally is the better player at the current moment.
Yeah.
So definitely using different criteria. And Vooch, the thing about him is I didn't even realize how I know you did say good numbers, bad team, but his efficiency is really, really good last year. And he was so like I have it pulled up, like he was shooting 53% from the field and 40% from three. And then and 80% from the line or 81% from the line on like however 10 11 boards and then 18 19 points. So definitely good stats, bad team, but and then he has the defensive weaknesses. But as I got to looking at a lot of these other centers, I didn't feel like there were that many centers who didn't have defensive weaknesses until we got a lot higher to the top of the list. Or I felt like they didn't offer a fraction of the offensive viability that Vooch had in terms of stretching the floor, in terms of IQ. I feel like Vooch is a very smart
Yeah.
player. And so just based off of that, I had him a lot higher. But I totally get it. If you're looking at like contract and winning a playoff series and building around a team and what kind of guys you can fit around him and how that limits your team, definitely don't have a problem with having him that far down on the list.
I mean, it is a hot take. I mean, I saw David's reaction, and he was just like stunned that I had him that low. Um, and I, I don't feel bad about it. I really don't. And it's like I hear your numbers, and I'm like kind of like cringing every time you're like, oh, 54 from the field, 40 for three, 80, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I could see why anybody like would say that, but I'm strictly going off the eye test. I have no stats in front of me. I'm just going off of what I've seen from them. And like this dude used to cook Myles Turner every time they played. But what European big doesn't cook Myles Turner that has any type of footwork? So that's just how it goes. But we can either let David react to this because he was so shocked, or we can just go to our number 13. It's what
Just
a
just quickly, I'll say I would in a heartbeat trade Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff for Vucevic for this year. If you're just talking about this year, if you're just talking about the best team for this year, yes, yes. If you're just purely talking about wins and losses, best team this year, yes.
okay.
Vucevic, I'll get into stats later for last year, but he's getting paid 6.5 less this year than the center for the Bucks, not counting the cap hold or whatever they had to get to
The
uh,
Dame cap hold,
the
yeah.
Dame cap thing, and like sure is the center for the Bucks probably better, and it would be a better fit for the Pacers probably, but. That guy's getting paid a lot more than Vooch is. Vooch is only on a 1 year contract for $21 million.
Yeah.
So
I
it
don't know, but you got
actually,
Jay Huff
I
for the
think,
next 3 years at like 3 million.
yes, yes, but like J Huff might be nothing. Like I hope he's something, but
What if
might be nothing. He
what if
might be.
he's good?
I mean, what if he is? Yeah, but Vucevic has been good. Like
Fair
Vucevic has
point.
proven it. He's proven it. That's my only thing. And he's like, I think Vucevic maybe he's getting underpaid this year. 21.5 million. Look at if you look at the contracts. I looked at some contracts, and like Wendell Carter Jr. is getting paid almost as much as Vucevic. So like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. But
It's
overpaid. I think he might be underpaid. I'm not sure. I'd want to pay him his next contract. No,
I just think that
I am sure. I am sure I would not want to pay him his next contract.
I'm just
However,
saying
I think he might be underpaid.
the fact that no team wanted to trade for him though, like,
Yeah, I don't know what's
and
up with
that was
that,
reported
but
multiple times, and they said
yes,
that they might even waive him. Like,
yeah,
if you're at that point in your career, like, that's not a good sign.
yeah. I don't understand that because he had a good
It could depend
he had a good
also.
year last year.
Yeah, it could also depend on what Chicago's asking. Like if they're asking for something of like reasonable return,
It's
then it's
Chicago. They don't
likely.
ask for anything.
But and
They
teams
give
also I
picks
think just
away.
know teams also probably know that he's gonna be a free agent after this. He's like unrestricted free agent after this year. So
Yeah.
it's like why would
Well,
I
that
give
that
up
should make his
anything?
price cheaper if they know that he's going to be hitting the market.
But it's like why would I give up anything if I could just pay for him on
Yeah.
my own?
The next year, but like
Yeah,
if
so
you're
that's what
trying to
I'm
win this
saying.
year,
Yeah, but maybe people were like, you know what? I don't know. Like what team is putting their chips all in? You know, the Knicks, they got Cat. In the West, it was like the Timberwolves made some moves, but like, you know, it's like I don't know, maybe they just felt like it was the Thunder. There's all kinds of different reasons why. And maybe he's going to be
Yeah.
bad next year, but I was like, yeah, statistically had a pretty good year, worthy of $21 million a year versus some of these people that are getting paid a lot more. I mean, Porzingis is getting $30 million a year to not play in the playoffs. So I don't know, you know, like
Milwaukee could have traded for
maybe they should have.
him. All right, Carson, let's get to your number 12 here.
So my number 12, I felt bad putting him on the list this early, but I had Alex Sarr here. I'm
Mm,
not a huge Alex Sarr fan. We've seen so little, so I'm not saying like he's gonna be a bust or anything. It's just underwhelming start to his career to say the least. I mean, he hasn't cracked 40%, didn't crack 40% in his rookie season, which is not great as a center 7 foot player.
Hmm.
And I get that like he's on the Wizards, doesn't have a great team around him, but still, I I don't know, is one of those guys who it's like I want to see it work out. I don't have a reason to like dislike him or anything. I'd love to see him really pan out as a high lottery pick. I mean, he's only 20 years old, but in terms of just like this season, what we're looking at right now, you just got to go based off of the data you have, and the data that we have for Alex Sarr is
Great.
not impressive. So
No.
I felt okay putting him at 12.
David, who'd you have at 12?
this is where I had Nick Claxton.
Okay.
So for Claxton, I think like 26, you know, they're paying him more than Nikola Vucevic, which maybe they're trying to lose. Um,
They got to pay
maybe,
somebody. That's fair.
maybe. Yeah, but like, you know, would I be surprised if this is just is who he is, and this is what, you know, 10 points a game, 7 rebounds, like solid backup center, but he's starting. I think it's kind of the story for a lot of these people. I'm like, Wendell Carter Jr. maybe he's always just going to be a backup center, but he's starting because of the situation. Nick Claxton maybe should be a backup center, but he's starting given the situation, the team he's on, and that kind of thing. And I think there's several players on this list that are kind of in that weird spot where like they'd maybe be really great backup, and people would be like wanting to trade for them if they were a backup, but they're not. They're starting because the team either is tanking or just is in a really rough spot. And so I feel the same way about Claxton. I don't like. Would it surprise me if he had a better year this year? No, but like I just don't see his ceiling being like much higher than this. So I went ahead and had him here.
Yeah, and I actually don't disagree with this tier where you have Claxton at. I will say 2 years ago he was a lot better, and I
Hmm.
think that it comes down to the fact that Brooklyn has had so much roster turnover
Yeah.
that it does impact a lob threat center. Like if you gave him a team that had like a pass first point guard, or even if you were to like look at maybe trading him to like the Lakers, and they didn't have DeAndre Ayton, but you pair him with Luka Doncic, like he could actually look like he's worth $25 million. So I think a lot of it is fit, and that is a hard part to factor in because he is on such a bad team. But I do
Hmm.
understand why you have him that low. For me at number 12, this is where I have J Huff and Isaiah Jackson, and I had to have him in this range right here. I mean, obviously, I have the hot take with Vooch below him, but just so unproven at this point, and that to me was like the hardest thing. Like when you're ranking Pacers, like you want to just like, how can I convince myself they should be higher? They should be higher. And we saw a very small sample size from J Huff last year with the Memphis Grizzlies, where he looked really, really, really impressive. Isaiah Jackson has had moments where he's looked really impressive, whether it was Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics a couple years ago or against the Knicks in the semis 2 years ago. Last year, coming back from that last year, didn't get a chance to do much because he tore his Achilles, and hated that because I think he could have been very impactful for the Pacers playoff run this year had he been healthy. A lot better option than Tony Bradley and Thomas Bryant. And it would have been huge to have him in a series like OKC, where you're struggling to find any big out there that can do anything competent. And his ability to switch on to other, wings and guards like that as a big, it's impressive, but can he continue to do that after coming off this injury? So a lot of question marks with him. I still kind of feel like Jay Huff's going to start on opening night. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I want to see more. I'm kind of excited, intrigued by what Huff and Ijax can do together as a duo, and it's very very cheap. It's like $10 million or less for both of them, so it's a great value in terms of potential. What You got something, David?
I have J Huff here, and Isaiah
Okay.
Jackson at 11.
Okay.
So I was going to go ahead and continue off of that
Perfect. Yeah.
if you were ready.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cut me
this is
off,
the
please. I'm just rambling.
yeah, you're fine, you're fine. This is the top of this tier for me. So it was, that next tier up was Wendell Carter Jr., Nick Claxton, and then Isaiah Jackson and J Huff. All the same
Hmm.
things you're saying. I do think that like could either one of them pop this year and have a good year and maybe jump up a couple spots, maybe. But that's kind of like it would be a little bit of a not a surprise, but it's kind of like it was not a given by any means. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Would love for one of them to pop. I maybe even both of them, but I would go ahead and start Huff. I think just for the sake of like giving Ajax a little bit more time to get in shape, get in game shape, knock off some more rust, and that kind of thing, and then if he earns it, give it to him. It's fine. But I would assume you start off with Huff, but I had them at the top of this like second to the bottom tier.
Yeah. And I will just quickly say that I had Claxton at 11, so we had them flipped.
Okay, sure.
So, but they were in my same tier as well. I just, like I mentioned earlier with Claxton, it's more so just because of I feel like he was good 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Contract was worth it, and then last year, like, goes from D'Angelo Russell to Dennis Schroeder. Like, it's just like all over the place. It might have been Schroeder than D'Angelo Russell. I can't remember exactly the order of operations, but you know, I think when we were looking at point guards for Brooklyn for the starting point guard this year, it's like Tyson Etienne is, who they're starting at point guard. So it's like, okay, like how is he going to figure out the best way to get himself acclimated in the system when he doesn't really have a point guard? And so it's tough. So Carson, we've given our number 11. Who do you have at 11?
This is where I have Kel'el Ware. Um, so with him, I feel like he kind of had like a really kind of got hot last season and people got really big on him because he just started playing really well. And it seems like he'll be starting for this Miami Heat team this year. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how he fits with Bam. He's super, super young, super, super raw. Um, I think he's about the same age that Alex Sarr is. He just generally had probably comparatively for where they were drafted a better rookie year compared to what you were probably expecting. Um, so yeah, again, small sample size. We don't have a whole lot to go off of, so I didn't want to like hype him up too much. I think at some point you do like anybody can have a good. I mean, like we saw Chris Duarte that first year on the Pacers. Anybody can have a good stretch of games, and then who knows if they'll be even in the league in a little bit. But I think he'll pan out. But I didn't want to put the cart before the horse with him, so I have him at 11.
All right, real quick, Carson, go ahead and read your 15 through 11. David, you follow, then I'll follow, and we'll take a quick break after that.
So at 15,
Yes.
I have Plumlee and Diabate, 14 Queta, 13 Ijax in Huff, 12 Alex Sarr, and 11 Kel'el.
15, I had Queta, 14, Diabate, Plumlee, 13, Carter Jr., Wendell Carter Jr., 12, Nick Claxton, and 11, Isaiah Jackson and J Huff.
All right, for me at 15, I have Queta. At 14, I have Diabate and Plumlee. At 13, I got everybody's favorite, Nikola Vucevic. At 12, I've got J Huff and Isaiah Jackson. And at 11, we've got Nick Claxton. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll come back and reveal 10 through 6, and then we'll take another break and then reveal our top 5. We'll be right back after this. All right, everybody, we are back, and we're going to go to David this time for number 10. Who do you got?
For number 10, this is where I went ahead and put Alex Sarr. To act like I know what he's going to do in the future, and I watched a bunch of his film in college, or did he even go to college? Someone tell me he went to college. I don't even know his
I
back.
think he was from France, so I'm pretty
That's
sure.
what I thought. That's why I like quickly like was like,
Yeah,
wait a minute. So that this is how much
we're
I
not
know about
draft
Alex
experts,
Sarr.
we're Pacers experts.
Yeah, I'm not, and I watch the NBA. I watch a lot of playoff basketball, and I watch occasional NBA casually. But I'm pretty sure I've only watched him play against the Pacers. So, looking at his stats though, it's pretty rough. So, hey, maybe he has a rough first year, just given that he was a high draft pick, that he's only 20 years old. Um, I thought I would give him the benefit of the doubt on a couple of things. So I think I'm not sure. I think it was Carson. You had him a little bit lower. But I did go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt and pump him up to the next tier for me, but at the bottom of it. So definitely like would be reason for concern if you're a Wizards fan like Facci. But I think that like I think that I still would give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit on, you know, he's 20 years old. So
Yeah.
definitely could all of a sudden pop up. It took who was the guy you're talking about for the Hawks that took a couple years to pop? J Johnson?
Jalen Johnson.
Yeah. Who knows? But given how young he is and the high draft pick, I'd be a little bit more patient with him than I would with somebody like who's 26, like Wendell Carter Jr.
Gotcha. Carson, who you have at number 10?
At number 10, this is where I have Jakob Poeltl.
Okay.
Jakob, uh, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I find it so funny that the Toronto has like traded him multiple times and for a first round pick multiple times. Um, and just I don't know. He's a really good player. Like him tearing the Pacers up with those little baby hook shots in the post is infuriating to watch. Um, but all around, he's just not a guy that I'm like super eager to have as my starting five. I don't know. I feel like ironically enough, a lot of like what you said about Vooch, a lot of your sentiments towards Vooch in some ways, I kind of feel that way about Jakob Poeltl.
Hmm.
Um, but so um, yeah, I've just never been a huge Poeltl fan.
Yeah.
But he's a good player and what he does well, he is good at it. He's just I think once you get to this kind of like top 10-ish, I start looking more at it from the lens of like can you be a fourth or fifth best starter on a really good championship level team? And I think some of these other guys that I haven't named yet, even guys who have gone named, I think they can be that. And I'm not sure Jakob Poeltl can do that, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
um, for that reason, a big part too is the defensive aspect. A lot of the guys that I have above him are either very efficient offensive players or they are the more kind of role player-esque, but they're good defenders, rim runners, can protect the rim, catch lobs, do so efficiently. So that is why I kind of capped Pirtle at this number 10 spot.
I will say for Poeltl, just real quick, I do think he's a pretty solid defender for a big. He's a kind of like a drop big. He's not one that you're going to switch a lot on,
Yeah.
and it depends on the scheme and the system. So I understand like he's not like an overwhelmingly like, hey, look at this great defender. No, that's not who he is. But I think he may be a little bit better than people realize as just like someone that can corral, rebounds and kind of protect the paint. I do like him as a player. I will just do my picks back to back because he's my number 9. At number 10, I have Wendell Carter Jr. And I feel like I kind of like want to put him in. I feel like I had him in that tier of like Claxton, Huff, Jackson, Vooch, all kind of together personally for me because he was part of that Vooch trade. And I don't ever feel like he's panned out in Orlando probably the way they hoped he would, especially considering how high of a draft pick he was. But I still believe in the talent. And I think that if he were, for example, a trade target of the Pacers and they were to bring him here next to Siakam, and Halliburton healthy, I think he could be a nice fit in Indiana. I just think it all depends on the fit. And it feels like he's had injury problems throughout his career as well. But it also just feels like with Orlando, they're just such a unique team. And I know they have a defensive minded head coach in Jamal Mosley. So I do kind of wonder just like if he's like the right fit for them. And we've seen Goga take some massive steps since he was here with the Pacers and has filled in pretty well for them when he's been out. And I know Goga's been doing great stuff in Eurobasket as well this summer, just really kind of putting that Georgian team on his back. So I don't know. I'm not like in love with Wendell Carter Jr., but I do think that he's intriguing. And I have Pirtle at 9 because I think good player, incredibly overpaid. I mean, the contract that he got this offseason was just like, whoa, what are we doing? Like, there's no competition. Like, why are you doing this, Toronto? But every decision Toronto makes, it just kind of makes me scratch my head. Like, why are you trading for Brandon Ingram? Why are you giving, um, why are you doing this? Like, you already have so many wings. Like, why are you overpaying him now? Like, I don't understand the Raptors all around, but I think he's a fine player. The money was part of the reason why I had him a little bit lower than some of the young guys, Carson, that you've already mentioned, because I think the young guys still are on such great contracts and they still have so much to prove. And that's kind of like I'm trying to leave that window open just a little bit. So, David, we'll go to you. Who do you have at number 9?
For number 9, this is where I have Kel'el, where I contemplated putting him higher. This group was tough. This after Sarr, next tier would be, so that was my number 10, and that next tier for me would be my 10, 9, 8, and 7. All of them, I thought were all together. And so for Kel'el, where like he's 21, pretty good rookie season. Nothing like mind-blowing though, but he also, he only played about 22 minutes a game, so it wasn't like he had a massive opportunity, but he had a good opportunity, a lot more than the people, like Ijax, J Huff, the last couple of years have been getting closer to 10, 15 minutes a game. So, um, it just like shows you some flashes, but also not consistency. He is very young still, so same as Alex Sarr, I kind of thought, who would I rather have out of the two of them? Probably Ware, but like I could make an argument for either one. Both are young, both showed flashes of good, flashes of inconsistencies. So and decently similar stats in in some ways. So I gave the nod to where he did shoot a good bit better from the field than Sarr, more rebounds than Sarr, but you know. That was kind of the biggest reason why I had a little bit of a better season, but it's a pretty similar story to me. So I put them back to back, but I did put Ware at 9.
I think it's interesting that you and Carson both had Ware ahead of Sarr
Yeah,
in your rankings, and it's like
I
you
think
guys had him.
that could be dead wrong. It could be dead wrong in a
Well,
couple
it's
years.
not. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah,
You guys had them like right back to back with each other, but you both
yeah.
gave the nod to Ware over Sarr. We'll see if I do that in the upcoming rankings. But Carson, who did you have at number 9?
This is where I had Wendell Carter Jr.
Okay.
Okay.
Kind of the opposite of what you did with same 9 and 10 as you, but just flipped. Um, with again, this is like I said earlier, like this is starting to get into like a run of a few centers. Same thing. I'll reiterate this point with my number 8, but for Wendell Carter Jr., I do feel like with the right fit, I do feel like his defensive prowess, his size, athleticism, kind of what he brings to the table, you don't hate him as your starting center, because I feel like a lot of times in the NBA, unless you have like a top tier center in the league, or if it's your first or second best player who's a two-way guy, sees an AD type or a Bam type or kind of that archetype, you really kind of want like him to do the dirty work. You want them getting rebounds. You want them protecting the rim. You're not really as concerned about some of the other aspects. Even if other guys do certain things better, there are certain things that really only a 7 foot, 6 foot 10 guy can do at an elite level. And so if they bring that, then I think you feel really good about that. So that is why I have um, Wendell Carter Jr. at this 9 spot.
Alrighty. So now we're gonna move to number 8 because we've already talked about Carter Jr. from both David's and I's perspective. David, we'll go to you at 8 this time.
Sure. This is where I have Jakob Poeltl. So, or Jakob Poeltl, I guess is how you say
Jacob,
his
I was
name.
like,
Jakob Poeltl.
Jacob Pearl.
You know who Jakob Poeltl is. I guess the last name was correct. So what do you mean you don't know who he is? Come on. Yes, this guy is incredibly overpaid. We talked about it just for a second, but like I'm gonna keep coming back to the Vucevic contract. He's is on a 5-year deal, averaging over $24.5 million every year, and Poeltl is getting sorry, and Vucevic is getting 21.5 this year. So maybe Vucevic signs some bigger contract next year, but
How old
um,
is Vooch?
Vooch is 34
Or
and Poeltl is 29. So maybe
Okay.
that's part of
I
it, I
think that
guess.
plays
But
a
like
factor.
for sure, there's a factor. I just feel like Jacob, Jacob, God,
I
I
feel
just
like
feel
you're
like
talking about a Pleasant View
in
player.
it's in my head. Maybe he is. It's in my head now that that I've said it wrong. Uh, Poeltl he's Timu Domantas Sabonis. Like he's like the exact same deficiencies, but not any of the same highs. Like he's still very good at certain things, whereas
Yeah.
Sabonis is like all-star level at some of those things, which is why he gets all-star nods a lot. Um, Poeltl was, I think, like third in rebounds per game out of the list of starters we have here. Yeah, I think fourth in
Fourth.
rebounds per game,
Real
but
quick, just so you
very
guys know,
close to
Vooch will be
third.
35 at the beginning of the season.
Yes,
His birthday is like October 24th,
it's
so
pretty
like,
close. But I think Poeltl also might be close to 30. I'm trying to
okay,
remember.
I'll look that up
A
too.
couple of people were pretty close on a couple of these things, so maybe I'm wrong. But uh,
Jakob Poeltl.
yes, Jacob, look him up. It's spelled the same way.
Yeah,
So
he'll be 30 October 15th.
yeah,
So they're
so
5 years apart.
5 years apart.
Exactly, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So again, he's almost a double-double machine, 14 and a half and 9.5. Which again, very Sabonis like. 2.8 assists, a decent assist guy. Again, kind of Sabonis like. Shot 63% from the field in almost 30 minutes a game. Like, this is all solid stuff, but I feel like this is like the best he's ever gonna be probably. And Sabonis is just a little bit better. And even most people would be like, yeah, he should be your number two or number three guy at best if you want to
Hmm.
win a championship. Because of the deficiencies. And I think just Poeltl has all the same ones. If you ask me, would I rather have Poeltl or Ijax? I'm taking Ijax. If you tell
Interesting.
me J Huff or Poeltl, I'm taking J Huff because I think fit wise, it's Poeltl is a better player than either one of those people. Don't get me wrong, but fit wise and contract wise, that's why I would say no, thank you, Poeltl. Stay in Toronto.
All right, Carson, who do you have at number 8?
So this is where I had Nick Claxton. Um,
You're pretty
I
high on
think,
Claxton then.
yeah. So I think I was again kind of going back, not taking into account really contracts, just looking at where they kind of fit at on a championship pedigree team. And you brought up Nick Claxton's season a couple of years ago. I felt like even coming into this year, um, people were still pretty high on Nick Claxton. He had an underwhelming season, and I think a lot of that comes from the type of player he is, not having a good point guard, not having a very good team. More or less, the Brooklyn Nets kind of being like the Cam Thomas show at times this year, and that's just not gonna bode very well for a guy like Nick Claxton. But if you go back to the 23 season when KD and Kyrie were still around, um, and Cam Johnson was on that team, and so that I think that year he led the NBA in field goal percentage at like 71% from the field, and then that was also like I think his I have it right here his like average 9 10 rebounds a game, 13 points, 2.5 blocks, finished top 10 in defensive player of the year. So like, and that was at the age of 23.
Hmm.
So like you put him in the right environment um, like to me, that's again when we're in this kind of mid-range of centers where it's not like guys who are going to be a top. You're not asking them to be a top three player in your championship team. It's more important to have guys that fit with superstars and that perform well and can defend well and can rebound well and can score efficiently. For me, if I already have a good scoring wing and I have a good point guard, that's the kind of guy I want at my 5 spot. And then obviously, if you can spread the floor, that's even better. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. And so I felt like it was fair to put him this high. And I know he kind of had it, like I said, an underwhelming season. But I think deep down on the right fit, I think there's a really solid player there. And there's a reason why he got that contract. Even if right now it doesn't feel great, might not be great on all these teams, but um, I definitely think that there is something there. So I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater from with what we've seen from Nick Claxton in the past.
I respect it a lot, and I actually am glad that you had him a little higher just to be different and kind of bring that point of view because I think last year probably people just soured on him. And if you look
Mhm.
at the numbers, you're like, yeah, well, this guy like is making way too much. His team's going nowhere. Like, what are you supposed to expect? Like, what are you supposed to think? But I think he's good, and so I'm glad you had him up high. Here at number 8, I'm actually going to reveal my 8-7 back to back because it is going to fall in line with our little teaser from earlier. Alex Sarr versus Khalil Ware. Do I have him ranked the same way David and Carson did? And unfortunately, I do. So we don't have as much excitement to talk about. But I have Alex Sarr here at number 8. And a lot of this is just projecting. It's very hard with him because last year it was tough. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that the Wizards can find some more, consistency with their ball handling with not only Bub Carrington getting more reps, but with CJ McCollum on the roster. CJ McCollum is just a veteran that we know he's a scorer, but he can run the point. He can do things to kind of get this offensive flowing. And I just feel like now that they've got some veterans on this team, it'll hopefully get more structure there in Washington. And Alex Sarr, there he was probably going to go number one. I'm pretty sure he told the Hawks not to draft him, if I remember correctly. Or there was some debate if he would go number one or to be Ricochet. But like, I don't think he wanted to go to Atlanta, and I do think it's interesting when a player wants to go to Washington. Like, you don't usually hear that, but he seems happy there. I like some of the young pieces that they've put together there with that team. I think this could be a nice core moving forward. It's just going to take time to develop, and I think bigs always take a lot of time. And so, could we see, a Jermaine O'Neal type leap from him in like, 3 or 4 years potentially? How Jo had that nice pop when he got traded from Portland to Indiana potentially, but he's just going to be looked at with a larger lens because he got drafted second overall. So I do have him here at 8, and then at number 7, Kel'el Ware. I don't love Ware as a player. I think it's very interesting that Eric Spoelstra had to like say during summer league to the media that he needs him to work harder every day, like be more consistent, and that is what kind of makes me nervous because he was at Oregon in college with Dana Altman, one of the best coaches in college basketball, and he could not get along with him. They just butted heads, and so he had to transfer, and he transferred to Indiana with Mike Woodson. And there was a lot of, consistency issues. Like his motor was just up and down, and they were very upset throughout his whole entire college career. Like with that, you know, whatever you want to call it. Like I don't want to say disability, but it was also like just something he didn't do consistently enough. And it's like you have to play with a high motor because you have to prove that you can be consistent and not just so up and down and be, he's not reliable when he's like that. So when he's playing with that high motor, he's a totally different player. And I think that being with Spoelstra, it's the best thing for him and his growth. And playing next to a guy like Bam, they can really play off of each other. Doesn't have to be like so much pressure on him to kind of anchor the defense and also be that spread shooter. So I think he's good, and I think that there's plenty of room for him to grow. Right system, incredibly talented, but man, he's got to get it up in his head, put it all together. So that's who I have at 7. We'll go back to you, David. Here, who do you have at 7?
I'm a little nervous because we have, to the best of my knowledge, outside of your Vooch pick, we've been like within reasonable range of each other. And, if one of us says a name, it's only a spot or two later that somebody else says the same name, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
I have a name here that hasn't been said yet tonight. Um, I have Jalen Duren here at number 7.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's what that is. I think that like we're in the next tier. No. Sorry, this is the top of that final tier.
Yeah.
With him, I don't know exactly what to make of Jalen Duren. Like some certain things, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of promise there, and he is still very young. So I did give him the benefit of the doubt, given that he 69% from the field, nice. I think that like how much of that is that he just shoots right close to the rim. It's probably a big part of it, but whatever. It's still, you did that. The 2.7 assists per game kind of blew me away. And he's pretty high in blocks, 1.1, which is like fourth, I think tied for fourth out of our starters, out of our people we ranked here. 1, 2, 3, fifth, maybe tied for fifth. But still, pretty high up. And, a double-double average points, almost 12, and then just over 10 rebounds. It's like he seems like he's pretty consistent, but I'm not sure if like this is the kind of player he's just always going to be, just like your fifth or sixth best starter. And that's not bad, but I don't know I don't know how to project him forward. Whereas like even Sarr or Kel'el, where I could be like, okay, I can see where you can grow. I can see where you could be top 5, maybe even in a few years. I feel like Duren, I'm not exactly sure where they go from here with him, but he's so young that I wasn't gonna ding him for it, but I didn't know where else to put him other than here, so I
Okay.
have him there.
Carson, who'd you have at 7?
I also have Jalen Duren at number 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, similar reasoning. I mean, like his great size, great athlete. Like I was really high on him in the draft coming out. I really liked that pick for Detroit. He kind of had like I felt like a strange 24, 25 season. His numbers dipped a little bit. I feel like his usage dipped a little bit. Um, but he very effective from the floor. I mean, like it's hard to argue with double digit rebounds and double digit scoring at the age of 2021. And so I think that just he'll continue to grow, get smarter. Like, I am definitely kind of in the same boat as David as to like I'm not really sure what to make of like his progress, what he will become, like what how he'll carve out his kind of niche, his role in the league. I think that'll be interesting to see. He kind of like when I think about him, um, I he seems more like a 2010 like early 2010s type NBA center to me than he
Mhm.
does. So then that could be a bad thing, but I think his athleticism and I think his size and his defensive um versatility will like keep him relevant. It's not like I'm worried about him staying in the league because he can't shoot threes. It's not what I'm saying. I think if you can shoot 70% from the floor, be a rim running, like block shots, run the pick and roll, catch lobs, especially with a guy like Cade, um, and with Jaden Ivey on that team, like he's he can perform well in that role. So, and yeah, but like David said, super young and effective from the floor. So I think that gives him a reasonably high ceiling for this.
I will say that for my number 6, that's where I had Jalen Duren. So we can just keep it moving here with the same conversation and go to our 6 before taking the next break. But yeah, for me, for Jalen Duren, I think the best thing that happened to him last year in the playoffs was Isaiah Stewart getting hurt because it then forced Bickerstaff's hand to play him more and not be so reliant on going back to Beef Stew, who can be a nice stretch big for them. Even though he is a little bit undersized, we know Isaiah Stewart is a manimal and he will play, above his size in terms of what he is height wise. I think Paul Reed was like their backup center in the playoffs last year. It's like, okay, like you needed Jalen Duren to kind of step up, and I feel like he was pretty solid against the Knicks, specifically in that matchup. Like that could have gone a couple of different ways, and maybe Detroit upsets New York in round one. Like that's how close the Pistons were last year. That's how underwhelming I felt like New York was in round one. I was like, man, they don't look that good. They just look too ISO heavy. And, they made some changes, obviously, in New York with their coaching staff. So we'll see if that makes a difference. But we're talking about Duren here. This is a guy that Myles Turner just abused every time they played. And why was that? Because he can spread the floor. And that's Jalen Duren's biggest issue is can he guard bigs that can spread the floor? And he has not been able to do that so far, which is why guarding Towns is a very difficult challenge for him. And I know that they were putting him on Josh Hart at times and keeping whether it was Tobias Harris or somebody else on Towns, they had to make sure that they didn't always have him matched up directly with Towns every single time. And that's because Jalen Duren just couldn't do that. And so, very young. I know a lot of people were like talking about how exciting he is. And Carson, you mentioned it kind of reminds you of like one of those 2010s bigs. I've heard the comparisons to Andre Drummond, who they also drafted, and had a similar kind of game where he was a little slow footed in terms of guarding players on the wings and on the perimeter. And it's just going to take some time for him. But I think that he's got a good coaching staff with Bickerstaff. Um, it's kind of funny saying coaching staff and then Bickerstaff it's together at the same time. But I do like that group. And I mean, JB's done a really good job of kind of coming from Cleveland, where he felt like he had maxed out what he could do there, and then coming to a young team and taking their floor to a whole nother level. So I I I don't totally believe in him though. That's my thing, and I'm still hesitant on what I think Jalen Duren can be in this league. I want to believe because I think he can be really good, and I think he has the right infrastructure around him. I just wonder if it's a wrong playoff matchup, does he get played off the floor, and how much does that impact how teams and how the league views him as a player? So that's why I have at 6. We'll go back to David here at 6. Who do you got?
This is the one. This is where I have Joel Embiid. Um,
Whoa, okay.
yeah, it's like
I love it. Talk to me.
he's the number one. He's number one if he
Mhm.
plays 60 games or more. He's the number one. However, you're paying a guy over $60 million a year to play last year 19 games and the year before 39 games. And the 2 years before he was 66 and 68. The 2 years before that he was 51 and 51, and then 64 the year before that, and then 63 the year before that, and then 31 the year before that, and then two goose eggs the 2 years before that. That's his career. He's had 4 seasons out of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 4 where he's played 60 plus. And so it's like it's like less than a 50-50. It's almost a 1 in 3.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
If he hasn't played 60 games, if he plays 59 games or less this year, it'll be a 1 in 3. 12 years, 4 times he's played. And you say several of the injuries are freak injuries. Some of the injuries are just, all kinds of different reasons. I'm not, I have no idea what's going on. It seems like most of the national media doesn't even really know what's going on. I'm not even sure how much the 76ers know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But it makes it impossible to rank him. He didn't have a great year last year anyways, even when he did play those 19 games. He's 31. You're paying a 31-year-old, like $60 million a year, whatever it is. I forget now what I said a minute ago, to play 20 to 60 games a year. I didn't feel good about putting him any higher than this for that reason alone. And I totally understand if somebody had a number one because of just pure talent, but like that's not where we are now. So I have him at 6.
Hey, I like the hot take. It might be as juicy or maybe not, but close to my Vooch take. So, Carson, who do you have at number 6?
This is where I had Vooch. Um, I think once you get to the top five, at least the way I did my top five, I feel like it's pretty clear um, who the five best are. But for Vooch, he already kind of went through when you brought him up why I was higher on him, so I won't waste my breath in reiterating all those facts. But generally, just efficient, good player, I think, in any offense, smart and so I think even with his defensive shortcomings, I think if you compare him to kind of the other guys in the 6 to 10 range, I think that his him being better in offense, um, he's better enough with the ball in his hands on offense to kind of make up for the defensive difference between him and those other guys. Maybe not the guys above him, but him and those other guys that I previously named. So I feel like he's slotted in well at this 6 spot for me.
All right. So there is our 10 through 6. We're going to take one more break and we'll reveal our top 5 right after this. All right, everybody, we are back and we're here to talk about the top 5 starting centers in the Eastern Conference based on our power rankings here and what we're going off of. So, Carson, to keep you awake, who do you got at number 5? Give me some energy. I need a little more pep in that step, man.
Alrighty, so my number 5 spot, I have the Lego Man in Milwaukee at my number
Ooh,
5 spot.
okay. Talk to us.
So, I mean, obviously can spread the floor, can block shots. Maybe not in the finals, isn't gonna spread the floor much for you, but in the first 3 rounds, really good. Might
First 2 rounds. I don't know about the
or
third
yeah,
round.
sorry, yeah, that's right. First
I
2 rounds of the
Bradley.
playoffs. Yeah. But I think I don't know. With my thing with Myles is I keep going back to which I will say like I don't want to like disparage how awesome he's been as a pacer by any means. But earlier in the season when there were reports, I felt like all of Pacer Nation was so kind of up and down with him this year in terms of, oh man, we're hearing he's asking for $30 million. I feel like every Pacers fan at times was like, pay the man, pay Myles. And then other times we were like, we cannot pay this man. We under
Yeah.
any circumstances, let's try to keep him, but we cannot pay him 30. And I feel like the same people were saying both of those things all year round. I generally felt like 30 was really high to give him. And there's a reason why he didn't necessarily end up even getting that. Um, but the thing I always go back to with Myles that makes it difficult for me, and it was something that Zach Lowe said on a podcast in the past like year or two. And he said, "Are we at a point with Myles Turner where he's a better offensive player than he is a defensive player?" And at that point, that was true. Um, I felt like he since the Pacers kind of took that step, it was like, and I maybe even have said this on this podcast before, but it felt like we needed with this Tyrese team, we needed that 2020, 2021 version of Myles. With this iteration of the team and with the previous iteration of the team, we needed the more like 2023 version of Myles. And so it's kind of
Mhm.
like flipped of what we were looking for. And so that is why I have him here. Um, I'm interested to see some of the other names that come up. There's one other guy specifically who plays in the Central Division, um, who we will get to, who I'm a little higher on, but I know some Pacers fans feel like Myles is well above him. I disagree for a few reasons, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bobby Portis in a little bit. David,
We sure will.
who do you have at number 5?
My number 5 is also the center for the Milwaukee Bucks. I consistency is the issue I think here. I think he's probably gonna. Maybe he won't end up being overpaid this year, but he got paid more than I would wanted the Pacers to pay him this year. Um, After having, in some ways, a good year, in other ways, it's just like he's the best shot blocker in terms of this list by a good bit, a half a block more per game than anybody else. But um, Mason Plumlee in 17 and a half minutes a game only averaged zero point 0.4 rebounds less per game.
Mm.
And that's been Tails' oldest time. And I don't think that individual rebounds mean everything. But 6.5 in 30 minutes a game is low. Is low. And it needs to be higher than that. And it's just a consistency issue. 15 and a half points per game on a guy that can score 30 in back-to-back games against the Wizards or whatever he did a couple years ago. Uh, but then your average 15 and a half is like he can shoot 45% for a couple weeks and then he's 0 for a million in the finals. It's like it's consistency and he's 29. So it's not like he's so many I feel like I've been a Myles defender for years. And if we had paid him 25 to 20, I don't know, maybe 25-ish, somewhere around there, I would have
24,
been
25 million, yeah.
somewhere around there. I'd been thrilled to have him back. I would have been thrilled. But this is where I have him. I just think consistency issues, and it is what it is at this point. We've been trying to hopefully next year maybe he'll average eight rebounds. No, he is who he is.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see if the rebounds do go up playing next to a guy like Giannis, or if they'll just help Giannis get more rebounds potentially. I don't know exactly how that'll work, but I think those two together could be very good defensively. And I mean, they could be a better defensive team than maybe we're giving them credit for. But if you look at the previous rankings, like Giannis was number one with the bullet for the power forwards in the Eastern Conference. You guys have Myles here at 5. We had the wings at 15. We had the point guard at 14. So it's just a lot of like blah with Giannis. And so that's kind of how I feel about this. And I wonder if it's going to make Myles look worse. However, based on what he's done previously and how he's kind of taken a step forward, I feel like the last couple of years with Tyrese, even though I didn't love his performance in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I don't have him at 4. I'm at 5. I have him at 4. At 5, this is where I have the Hawks combination of Okongwu and Porzingis. And part of the reason why I think Okongwu is really talented, and I think he will start over Porzingis. I think Porzingis will come off the bench. Porzingis, to me, is a guy that can never stay healthy. And as much as I want to believe in him and like the talent that's there, that availability is huge to me. And I know that you brought up Embiid earlier. I think Porzingis has never been MVP level talent, so that's why I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. And with Okongwu, he's still unproven, very young, very raw. And I just feel like Myles to me is a notch better than Okongwu and KP at this point, but it's very, very close, and you can make the case. So I'm not gonna over argue this point, but that's why I have the Hawks duo at 5, and then I have Myles at number 4. So Carson, who'd you have at 4?
I also had the Porzingis Okongwu duo. I feel like they kind of balance each other out in a nice way. Like they give you two different looks. Um, and I feel like Okongwu's had a lot of fans both within the organization and outside the organization for a few years now.
People love
Um,
him. Everybody talks
yeah,
glowingly
yeah.
about
So like I know a lot of like I feel like I've heard a lot of basketball fans of other teams be like, man, Clint Capella is still getting minutes over Okongwu. We got to go trade for Okongwu. But I think the Hawks have like a pretty um, clear plan for what they want to do with him, and I think that's why they've kept him around. Like you said you think he'll start. I would not be surprised if that were the case. But even if he doesn't, like I really like the balance that they've found. It's not unlike the pairing of Ijax and J Huff with the Pacers. It's just a lot better. Um, and so I think that'll give the Hawks a really, really nice like look with Trey and with just kind of that team that they've built out kind of sneakily, maybe might be a pretty solid team in the East this year, and they'll be a big part of it.
I don't disagree with anything you said there. I think you're making a good point as to why they could be higher. I mean, the duo together potentially, yeah, I can see that. Um, I guess I was just going off of like if you're picking one or the other,
Yeah.
you know, that's why I'd have Miles higher. But David, I'm assuming you have a Kongwu and
I
KP at 4.
I do, I do,
Okay.
and I honestly I agree with what I think you guys said. We had 5 and 4 exactly the same, just a little bit flipped here and there. I don't need to add anything else about it. Obviously, KP injury issues, but has talent, and Okongwu unproven, but has talent. So the combination, I think, could work out really well because if KP is healthy, then you're golden and you have a great backup in Okongwu, and if not, then you have Okongwu. So, and you can probably try playing them both at the same time. So I don't have anything else I really need to add on that one.
Okay, so based on everything we've picked so far, me and Carson have the same top 3. We don't know what order yet. The 3 players are Jarrett Allen, Karl Anthony Towns, and Joel Embiid. David has Jarrett Allen, Karl Anthony Towns, and Nikola Vucevic in his top 3. So we'll keep it suspenseful. We'll go to Carson here first at number 3. Who do you got?
This is where I have Jarrett Allen.
Is
Uh,
this the other center in the Central Division you were referring to earlier?
yes.
Okay, so it wasn't Portis.
No, 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 no.
Okay, I really thought you were going to bring up Bobby Portis for a second.
No, 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 no.
I'm kidding.
It
I'm
was
kidding.
Jared Allen. No, because I've seen like Pacers fans talk about Myles versus Jared Allen, and I always felt like there's quite a bit of homerism involved in that. Um,
Not
for a few,
anymore.
yeah, not anymore. Uh, for a few reasons. One of which, like, I do think Myles has like he's never cracked that all-star pedigree, nor has he ever like he's always been on the outside looking in when it comes to that, and it kind of never really felt like it was there. Whereas even if it turns out to just have been one all-star appearance, Jared Allen does have that on his resume, and it was a deserving all-star game. I mean, he has like 3 finishes as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate where he got votes. That means a lot. He led the league in field goal percentage last year. I just really like what he does. He might not block as many shots as Myles does, but I think there's an argument to be had that he is a better quote unquote rim protector because he's keeping guys away from the rim. And he's not a lot of times doesn't let them get that deep. I just like his game. Like you can say he's overpaid, you can say that he has doesn't stretch the floor, doesn't have an outside game, but man, is he a good screener? Man, can he roll to the basket? Man, can he rebound? Man, can he clean up around the rim? Like he just does what you want your center to do. So there's that, and also not that this matters as much, but I also just kind of like Jared Allen. Like when I hear him talking like post game interviews and stuff, I'm like, this dude seems like he's a really cool, like kind of endearing guy. So I've always been a fan of Jared Allen. And he gave me one of my favorite all-time NBA quotes of the perhaps the lights were too bright. So I have to thank him for that as well.
You know what I will say? When you're Jared Allen and you're cool enough to get a podcast named after you, aka Fear the Fro, with our good friend Bob Schmidt, then you deserve to be up this high in the Eastern Conference Center's power rankings. So if you're not listening to that podcast, give our friend Bob a listen. He is absolutely hilarious and has been a great guest on our show. So I wanted to give him a shout out there. But I agree with you. At number 3, this is where I have Jared Allen as well. And I think all the points you brought up, Carson, I don't need to reiterate them. They're just spot on, especially the outside shooting. And I think that's been the biggest difference between him and Myles is Myles' ability to step out and hit threes where he doesn't do that. But if you're looking at actually setting good screens, like Jared Allen is much, much better. Great at diving to the rim. And I think he's actually a better playmaker than Myles Turner is as well. And I think that might get lost in translation by a lot of, fans that are just kind of casually watching. But like his ability to kind of be that playmaker with pitches to guards and things like that. We saw how bad Myles was at giving the pitch to Tyrese, and I know Caitlin Cooper brought this up, talking about how OKC was defending what the Pacers were doing, and like Turner was just like not consistent at all in that. And so there's definitely some pros and cons. And if you're really getting into the nitty gritty, the All Star point is a great one too as well. I mean, I think Jarrett Allen is a very, very, very solid center, and I think depending on where he is, I mean, I like his fit next to Mobley. I think he's a good fit in Cleveland. And if he doesn't work out there, like if they want to make some moves, if they don't make the finals this year, if I'm Indiana, I'm trying to get my hands on Jarrett Allen. I think he'd be a nice fit next to Pascal, and they could probably, Tyrese has talked about playing with a lob threat center for the entirety of his career. Now he kind of likes having a stretch big, so it's a much, 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 much higher upgrade than Isaiah Jackson. And if you can have Jay Huff playing behind him, like you still have that stretch big if he pans out, and you still have Obi Toppin on the roster. I think if I'm Indiana, that'd be somebody I would be looking at if he does become available. But yeah, he's very talented. So David, who did you have at number 3?
Okay, I'll end the madness. This is where I have Nikola Vucevic.
That is why you were so shocked that I had him 10 spots lower than where you had him too.
10 spots. Yeah, yeah,
That's
and I think
crazy.
I probably have him too high. I mean, I'm sure I do, but I, for one, he's a division rival, so I've watched a good bit of Vooch compared to some of these other people. Sure, are there some defensive issues? Of course there are. But we watch a guy play basketball that we think is the GOAT point guard that has some defensive issues, and we saw him step up to the occasion. Tyrese, this in the playoffs and maybe even towards the end of the season. But I think that I think he's like, and I don't read too much into this, but he's like a light version of Joker, obviously very light, but I think on a better team, I think he could be no, obviously not now, he's too old. But if he hadn't spent the last part of his career just withering away in Chicago and one of the worst teams in the league over the last decade, uh, he could have actually had a moment to be something more. He was, in terms of his season last year, out of the 17 or 18 players that we've talked about so far, he was third in points, fourth in points, but only a point behind Porzingis. He was second in rebounds. No, sorry, third in rebounds, but by point two. He was second in assists and shot 53% from the field while taking threes, unlike a lot of other players. So really good stats. And I part of why he ended up at 3 was like I talked about at the very beginning of this podcast an hour ago. It was very difficult where I put Porzingis and Embiid, two people that injury concerns all the time, more talented than Vucevic. Would I rather have a healthy Embiid or Porzingis or a healthy Vucevic? Of course, I'm taking Porzingis or Embiid, but they're never healthy, and Vucevic is consistent in terms of what
Mhm.
he's giving you. Probably should have put Myles higher than him, but I'm a little sour, so Vucevic ends up at 3.
Hey, I like it. Obviously, I don't agree with
Sure.
with the evaluation of Vooch because I have him so much lower. But I think honestly, if you take your strong take on him and my bad take on him, right there in the middle is probably where he belongs. Where'd
Yeah,
you have him at again, Carson?
I had him at 6.
But
that's
that's
probably
probably right in the middle. I mean, I had him.
yeah,
That would be around 7, I think, if you split me and David's,
yeah.
up where we had him. So like, I think that you're probably more accurate, Carson, than me and David on where we had Vooch at. I just I overreacted a little bit just because I'm like, I'm just like he doesn't move the needle for me. But like I do understand like the upside and like if you watch a lot of his game, like you're like that guy's a good player. Like he can do a lot of good things. But then you like look at playoff numbers and things like that. It's like he might put up numbers in the playoffs too, but it's like eye test is big for me, and I don't always just go off what statistics say, especially just like generic statistics. I mean, if you're looking at like analytical stuff and really diving into like, oh, like how many shot attempts did he have here, or how well did he defend in this portion of the court, like all that stuff is really great data that I just don't usually check a lot out, especially in the off season. But I, I like Vooch. I think he's a fine player. I liked him probably a lot more a couple of years ago than I do now, and I just kind of wonder like how much longer he's going to be impactful. Like he's not going to have like an Al Horford end of career type of resurgence where he can kind of be like a big that can do like the 3 and D type thing. So, all right, let's get to our number two here. I'm curious, David, who you have at number two.
I have Jared Allen here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that like he's the kind of player you want to have next to a couple superstars. I just think is he overpaid? Yeah, probably, but not significantly to me. Just a little bit. I mean, he's getting paid I think it's like $2 million total more than Myles Turner, so it's roughly equivalent. Let me double check. I think it's really close. So, um, yes, it is like less than $2 million total more than Myles. So
Mhm.
basically, it's a wash. Over the course of 4 years, it's a wash. And I think like the only reason why I would take Myles above Allen for the Pacers, the only reason why I would do it is for shooting purposes. But I'm not even sure that like what you're making up on rebounding, what you're making up for defensively, the all the things Carson talked about already. I think I would totally get why you might take Allen, and I might take Allen even over Myles. Just I don't know what maybe never will know exactly all that happened behind the scenes with Myles leaving, but I just feel like Jared Allen is the kind of person that wouldn't happen with. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the feeling that I've gotten watching him and seeing what kind of a person he is and his demeanor, his basketball IQ. I just feel like he's the kind of player you want to have next to a couple of superstars. And like it would not shock me at all if Cleveland's in the finals this year. Um, and you have like not like Chet exactly, but like kind of like Chet in the terms of like he is clearly not the guy or even the number two guy, and he's okay with that. And I think that that's like where you have Allen right now. He's probably number three or four, probably number four, and he's fine with that, right?
Yeah.
And that's I love that about him. While he also is very productive, and he can. He's not just like, okay, yeah, you guys take the ball and I'll shoot like once a game. Like he's doing stuff still. It's just and it's enough to take away some attention, but he's not an ego and is not going to detract anything from what the coach's scheme is and what the superstars need to have to get their points up and all that good stuff. So I like him a lot. Talent wise, he's not number two. He's probably number three, but like that's where I have him because of all the injury issues with Embiid.
No, I mean it's a fair point, and I would say if you're comparing him to like OKC, I would almost say he's more the Hartenstein role than he
Yes,
is the
yeah,
Chet
sure,
role.
of
I would say
course,
Mobley's more the Chet role, and
yeah,
then you can split up Garland and Mitchell into the Jalen Williams SGA
yeah,
role, and then Strus, if he's healthy, is kind of like the Caruso,
yeah.
Udort. Like they're just such a deep team. It's really hard to go through every single player. But um, Carson, you said earlier that Myles went 0 for a million from
No, that
three in
was,
the finals.
I think that was me.
Was it you that said that? Whoever said it, you were talking about, Jared Allen doesn't have the shooting. Well, it doesn't really matter. If you go 0 for a million in the finals, it doesn't matter. So, but let's move over to your number two now, Carson. I'm curious, who'd you put here?
My number two spot, I have the one and only Big Purr, Karl Anthony Towns.
All right, the big
So
purr. Let's talk about Cat.
Big Purr. So yeah, Cat's one of those guys who like I feel like ever since he's gotten into the league, he's just been really good. Like um, always average. Like it's funny. Like you look at his stats from his second year in the league as a 21-year-old, he was at 25 and 12 on pretty good shooting splits. Um, the only guy that we've talked about thus far who has an All NBA nod, and he has three of those. Like that, like All NBA is a very high honor to have one time in your career, much less multiple times. Um, I feel like people, I don't know why, I felt like a couple years ago, maybe it was the later years in Minnesota, where people kind of got a little low on him, I felt like all of a sudden. I didn't really understand why. Obviously, he's never been some like defensive monster, but he has good size, and I think in some instances he's not as bad as what, especially in Minnesota, because even before the Gobert trade, but I felt like he wasn't always as bad as necessarily what people painted him out to be on defense. Obviously, him and Brunson's pairing is awful defensively, and that's but I do think Brunson is the bigger reason why that pairing is bad defensively. I don't think that's as much of Cat's fault on defense as it is Brunson's. But I mean, I think like I said, for a while, I felt like people got a little low, but man, his like numbers and just watching him play, like I was really reminded during the playoffs of like, man, if we lose this series, which I never really felt like we were, but I was like, if we do, it'll be because Cat just like goes nuclear and eats Myles alive, and he did at times.
Oh yeah,
Um,
had to change the
and
matchup. They put Siakam on him.
yeah, yeah. And so, and even just like his moves and like it was infuriating me because like the way that he was able to draw those fouls. Um, but I was really impressed with him in that series. And I felt like he was easily their best player in that series.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. As soon as you said the big purr, we got a text from our friend Lincoln, and he said, "Great timing, Cat." According to New York Basketball on Twitter, Karl Anthony Towns just told the media that being in New York opens up a lot of new doors. It means it's been great for him as a brand and a businessman. Like he's not been paying attention to what's going on with Kawhi Leonard and now Jalen Brunson. So, congratulations. We're gonna add Cat to the Pablo Torre investigation scandal here in the NBA in September. But Carson, I was surprised to hear you say the big purr at number two. This is where I had to put Joel Embiid. And if he's healthy, he's the most talented. He's the MVP. I get all that. David's points earlier for why he had him at six, I believe it was, were very accurate in terms of like he just can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the floor. And there's been some scuttlebutt in the offseason about him potentially retiring. I've heard Bill Simmons on his podcast and different other people say this is potentially the worst contract in the NBA and you can't trade it. It's so expensive. Who's going to deal for this? He's not going to play. Like, you can't count on him. He's never been out of the second round of the playoffs. Like, it's just tough. And so I couldn't put him any higher than Cat. I feel like Cat at one is fair because he plays a lot more. And I felt like at times, not the entirety of that series against Indiana, but I felt like he was the bigger threat than Jalen Brunson at times. Jalen Brunson still is able to get his own and do his thing, but we saw a game where Cat won the Knicks. I believe it was game four because they would have been down 3-1. Indiana was in pretty control of that game, and Cat comes in the fourth quarter and just goes nuclear, and Myles Turner had no chance against him. I think they even had Tony Bradley on him at one point. They sub Myles out, put Tony Bradley in. I'm like, why are we subbing in Tony Bradley for Myles to guard Cat? But the entire time, Jalen Brunson sitting next to his father on the bench watching the game. And so that to me was just kind of like, okay, I like Joel Embiid as a player for sure when he's healthy. He does get annoying how much he falls on the floor and flops and does all that stuff. And he's almost, I think, kind of given too much into the 3-point shot and the outside shooting where he's not as dominant as he once was down low. But I think that's also injury related. So it's just this guy falls so much. He's hurt all the time. You can't rely on him, but he's still 30 games of Joel Embiid at that level is far greater than anybody else 3 through 15 in my opinion on the list. Like Jarrett Allen at 3, think he's awesome. But like compared to Joel Embiid for those 30 some games, I think I'd rather have Joel Embiid for 30 some games. At that point, I'm just saying with what he can do peak level wise, because this guy's like a walking 30 and 10 and 8 with like 3 blocks. So he can do all that. But I just think Cat is closer to that, like way closer to Embiid in terms of talent wise than Jarrett Allen. Like they're totally a tier apart, and he plays a lot more. So that's why I had Cat one. And so David, I know you have Karl Anthony Towns one.
I do, and he was the only person I had in that tier. I did have to me like basically from 2 to 6, it's all kind of like I can see arguments for this, that, or the other. Given that I have Embiid at 6, obviously his talent he is up there with Cat, if not above Cat.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know. Cat had a really good season last year. He had a really good season last year. I think a lot of people look at the defense in the playoffs, especially against the Pacers, and point to that as like this huge Achilles heel problem. And I agree with Carson wholeheartedly. I think the Brunson part of that is the bigger problem. I think that if you had a decent defensive guard, it would be a lot less noticeable how, Cat's defensive issues when he's having to, recover on a collapsing offense and the defense is collapsing with it and it's kind of getting into more chaotic stuff. He led the centers in scoring, led the centers in rebounds, had three over 3 assists per game, shot over 50% from the field while shooting a lot of threes. Really talented guy. Obviously, there's criticisms to be had. He drives me crazy to watch to some extent because he comes across as so uncoordinated that it's like, how could that guy make that shot? Or how could that guy do that thing? But he is very, very good, and he obviously flops a lot and all kinds of other stuff too. But like, hey, I don't know, it's the NBA. To some extent, it happens across the NBA to different levels. I think if he was somewhere else, it wouldn't bother me as much because of the fact that he's in New York next to Jalen Brunson, who also is a huge flopper. If you watch the Knicks, you're watching two massive floppers the whole game. It makes it feel even worse. Whereas if it was just one of them, maybe I wouldn't get so worried about it. But I think to me, he was a clearly easy choice for number one. He was probably the easiest position to pick. The easiest spot was number one. Even 15 and 14, I looked into it a little bit. This one here, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm going to put him number one, and I'm going to put Joel Embiid somewhere lower. But yeah,
Mhm.
not miss off talent again. But for now, this is where he's at, number one for sure.
Yeah, you just you like took talent into your evaluation. It just wasn't the end all be all for you. And I think that's fair. You know, a lot of it just depends on how you value these players and how you value like availability and stats and age and contract. Like it all just is how you view like your weight in terms of what is important to you. So Carson, you've got Joel Embiid number one. You are here on an island by yourself. Talk to us. Let us know. Is it the jet lag or is it just how you truly feel?
No, it was just the type of thing where based off of my criteria, wasn't like something I came into like being like, oh, I'm gonna overthink this beyond just like I'm just taking this at surface level face value of like Joel Embiid is the best player here. Even like if you look at like three of the past four seasons, um averaging like I mean he has played I forget. I just had it a second ago, but however many games, like David said, obviously his rate at which he is actually available is very problematic. But these past few like four-ish seasons, he's at 32 points. I think, yeah, 32 points, 11 rebounds, five-ish, a little under five, 4.5 assists. Um, Seasons where he's finishing like top 10 in uh MVP, defensive MVP voting, two-way guy. Like, and I will say, like, I am an Embiid hater. Like, I hate watching him play. I think what he like, it's one thing for a guy to be so like, I don't know, people talk about James Harden and like his flopping stuff. Like it felt like he was like tricky in a way
Mm.
that I was like, man, if he just couldn't like take these step backs from 35 feet away, he wouldn't be getting these calls. But he can make those shots, so he was getting those calls and he was baiting guys into that. And Embiid is like, oh, I'm just gonna be like 5 feet away from the basket and I will have a 6-footer on me and I'm still gonna draw a foul. And that drives me nuts. I felt like his campaign, like his MVP campaign, felt so shameless to me. Like I did not really, um,
You wouldn't have voted for him.
I would not have voted for him. I don't know, just like the whole thing around it. I feel like the MVP uh award in
Voters,
general is so it's so narrative based and it's just like
yeah. You think there
it's
was
like
voters fatigue?
yeah, definitely voter fatigue and the fact that like people kind of decide the year before whether or not it's your year to get it. Like I felt like I think yeah, 2024 is a good example. I felt like Luca should have got it that year. Like 35 9 and 9 is insane. Um or 34 9 and 9 on crazy splits. But it was like the next year where people were like, okay, now it's Luca. This is the year that Luca should win it. He shouldn't have won it this year, or he shouldn't have won it last year. We weren't expecting it. And I feel like people just like kind of like project how like the narrative of last season into this season. But all that being said, Joel Embiid is an amazing player. I mean, a lot of people say he's top one, top two player in the NBA when healthy. Obviously, huge caveat, but this wasn't something that just for the sake of the conversation, didn't want to overthink too much. Definitely think it's the probably the worst contract in the NBA. If I'm Phoenix, or not Phoenix, it is too late. If I'm Philadelphia, I got the first two letters right. If I'm Philadelphia, I do not feel great about the future of Joel Embiid. I think it is so weird that we haven't heard much in the fact that he has played like so little over specifically the last 2 seasons. And I think he even got like a really strange surgery. And they were trying to rush him back um, at the end of one of the more recent seasons. And it was just like a lot of weird stuff going on there. So who knows? But overall, just I didn't want to discredit how good he's been recently enough for me to keep him at this number 1 spot.
No, I mean that's a fair point. And he was on Team USA last year when they won the gold medal. And I think that that did kind of set him back for the upcoming season in 24-25. And now he's still dealing with coming with those, repercussions from what he did during that time with Team USA. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, if you're a Pacer fan and you want to like have a chance at going further in the East, you kind of hope he doesn't ever return back to form because MVP level guy just makes it that much harder. And they haven't really been a factor throughout the Eastern Conference since the Pacers have kind of been on this run. So good team though. They lost in the first round 2 years ago to the Knicks, and I don't think they even made the playoffs this year. So they're just a team that kind of seems in flux, and we'll see what Daryl Morey tries to pull off because this is probably the team everybody has the biggest question marks about in the Eastern Conference. Like that roster, if they're healthy, they can win the East. But they could also miss the playoffs if they're not. And like that is what's so weird about this group. You don't really know where to pinpoint them. So as we close things out, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's episode of Setting the Pace. Just so you guys can hear our top 15 rankings, 1 through 15, all the way through without all the conversation. We'll go through it, repeat those quickly. I'll start with David, go to Carson, and I'll close it out. And you guys can hear what we had here real quick.
All right, at number 1, Karl Anthony Towns. Number 2, Jarrett Allen. Number 3, Nikola Vucevic. Number 4, Kristaps Porzingis and the Okongwu, excuse me. Number 5, Myles Turner. Number 6, Joel Embiid. Number 7, Jalen Duren. Number 8, Jakob Poeltl. Number
Jacob.
9, number 9, Kel'el Ware. Number 10, Alex Sarr. Number 11, Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff. Number 12, Nick Claxton. Number 13, Wendell Carter Jr. Number 14, the combo of Mason Plumlee and is it Myles Plumlee? Mason Plumlee.
Mason Plumlee.
Mason
Myles Plumlee was
Plumlee.
on the Pacers.
I said it and I doubted myself. Mason Plumlee and Diabate, and then at number 15, Nemias, Queta.
Yeah, I can't
I'm not
pronounce
positive. Queta is the last name though.
Queta. All right, Carson, 1 through 15.
Number 1, Joel Embiid. Number 2, Karl Anthony Towns. Number 3, Jarrett Allen. Number 4 was the Hawks duo with Kristaps Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu. Number 5, Myles Turner. Number 6 was Vooch. Number 7 was Jalen Duren. Number 8, Nick Claxton. Number 9, Wendell Carter Jr. Number 10, Jakob Poeltl. Number 11, Kel'el Ware. Number 12, Alex Sarr. 13 was the Pacers duo with Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff. 14, Queta. 15, Hornets duo of Plumlee and Diabate.
All right, for me, for number 1, I had Karl Anthony Towns, 2, Joel Embiid, 3, Jarrett Allen, 4, Myles Turner, 5, Onyeka Okongwu and Kristaps Porzingis. At 6, Jalen Duren. At 7, Kel'el Ware. 8, Alex Sarr. 9, Jakob Poeltl. 10, Wendell Carter Jr. 11, Nick Claxton. Number 12, Jay Huff / Isaiah Jackson. 13, Nikola Vucevic. 14, the Plum Dog himself and Diabate. And 15, Mr. Queta. That is the 15 that I had. And ladies and gentlemen, we hope you guys enjoyed this week's series of rankings. Facci and I will take a break from this next week. We're going to probably talk some bold predictions. We're probably going to be talking about things that are a little bit different than just ranking things and seeing where the Pacers stack up. But I would be interested to kind of go through, get all the 2K ratings and just see how they have each bench unit rated, and also combine all of the overall ratings to see what the average is for the starters to see how they rank them as well in the Eastern Conference. But I'm not going to bore you guys with that. Maybe I'll do it for a Saturday episode. Stay tuned. You never know what's coming here on Setting the Pace, but we do appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube and you made it this far, please leave a comment for Carson. Thank him for staying up and doing this podcast with us, and leave us a thumbs up and a subscription on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening on the audio side of things, please give us a 5-star rating and review, and leave us a comment in that review telling us how much you love this podcast so other people can find our podcast as well. Until then, have a great week in Pacer Nation. We'll talk to you later.